Thursday Night Football is on, and it's only on Prime Video. This week, the NFC West grabs the spotlight as the Los Angeles Rams visit the Seattle Seahawks. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Eastern with football's best party, TNF Tonight, presented by Verizon. It's Rams Seahawks, Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern. And don't miss the Broncos and the Chiefs on Christmas night, only on Prime Video. Not a Prime member? Not a problem. Simply sign up for a 30-day free trial. Restrictions apply. See Amazon.com/Amazon Prime for details.
2 hours ago, Kyle arrived at the bar.
Hey, what's everyone drinking?
30 minutes ago, Kyle got his friends another round of drinks.
Cheers!
5 minutes ago, Kyle decided to drive home drunk. A minute ago, a law enforcement officer pulled up behind Kyle.
Sir, have you been drinking tonight?
A chain of events that began 2 hours ago is about to change Kyle's whole world. Drive sober or get pulled over. Paid for by NHTSA.
What's up, champs? Welcome to another episode of the Short Shifts Fantasy Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Keeping Karlsson. I'm Louis Ezekiel. Joining me tonight, my pal and yours, Ryan Downey. Ryan, how are you doing on this fine Tuesday evening?
Well, Louis, I'm doing a lot better now that we are back here in the studio together. It's so nice to hear your voice, although you do sound a little bit tired. Have you been enjoying some of that Manischewitz as we're celebrating the beginning of Hanukkah here?
I've actually been pretty good. My cause is it is close to end of, we're heading into break at school. So wrangling the students and keeping them, focused on things when there's snow falling or literally any other distraction that they can dig up has taken a little more of my voice than usual. So I'm sorry, I'm coming in a little scratchy, but I am really excited to talk about all of these great topics, and let's not waste any more time getting into them. And I know one thing that you wanted to cover was looking at the pieces of the big trades that maybe didn't get as much discussion, didn't get as much coverage on the big show. So why don't you start us over there? We've got Vancouver here with these, 4 first-round picks overall in exchange for that franchise player. I think they would have liked to have that work out, but there is a lot of interest here, I think, with Vancouver. Start us off with Zeev Buium.
Yeah, I was going to say, Louis, you're going to have to use your children wrangling skills on me here, because this is basically prospect Christmas before actual prospect Christmas, which is the World Juniors. But we did have a lot of young players moving in this Quinn Hughes deal. I'll just outline them here up top. We have that Zeev Buium, great young defenseman. We'll get into him a little bit here. Liam Ohgren, Marco Rossi, who's been in the league for a little bit, and of course the first-round pick, the actual first-round pick, which is included in this deal. And you've tossed it to me to start with Buium, and a lot has been said about Zeev Buium this season, leading up to this season. I'm probably not telling you anything you don't know, but Vancouver Canucks fans will be very happy to hear that Zeev Buium's ceiling through his career is a 70 to 80-point offensive defenseman, a veritable Quinn Hughes light. And I think something we have to remember here, Louis, is that a lot of people thought that Zeev would be going 3rd overall to the Ducks in the 2024 draft. And Minnesota was probably as surprised as anybody when they got a player of his talent level as low as the 12th pick. So there is definitely a world where Zeev at the top of his funnel is similar to Quinn Hughes, maybe 4 or 5 years from now, and he'll have all of the opportunity in the world playing with the very few, albeit talented offensive players at the top of the Vancouver lineup to try and get there. He's still so young, and the early returns have certainly been impressive, with him going 1 goal, 1 assist in his first game with the Canucks over the weekend. And one of the talented offensive players that he gets to play with, at least right now, is his former and current teammate, Marco Rossi, who's the current 1C for the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, I know that there was a lot of debate over, this weekend on the Discord about Rossi compared to some of the other potential options that could have ended up in Vancouver in a Hughes trade, maybe Dawson Mercer on the Devils, any number of the centers the Red Wings have drafted in the past few years, Casper, Danielson, Brandstad, Newgard. Rossi should be a third center on a cup contending team, but on an offensively starved team like Vancouver, as you pointed out, he's immediately the second center behind EP40. He has an opportunity to stake a claim to a power play role, but he is going to have to compete with Garland, DeBrusk, and Kane for that last spot. Kane put in a goal today at even strength. Garland and DeBrusk broke out a little bit in the last game. We do have an assist from Besser. So, going back to our discussion about holding on to some of these players, last week on the show, they have made a few moves, although it hasn't been, a major course correction or regression to the mean. Hopefully we'll see that soon. Still plenty of shooting taking place. If he has that power play role, that he could be a 60 to 70 point guy who can be productive offensively. But what are you thinking? What happens if he's boxed out of that power play opportunity, as I think could definitely happen?
Yeah, it definitely could happen. And right now is his opportunity, while Elias Pettersson is out, to try and stake a claim to that role, or one of those roles, like you said. The thing about Marco Rossi is he's not the best play driver, especially in the neutral zone. You're happy with him once you get him in the offensive zone and he's looking to dish it off or drive to the net. He has good offensive instincts there, but he's more of a complementary player until you get to the offensive zone. I think without that power play role, you're still looking at a 50 to 60 point guy at even strength. And I think that's better than what you could have expected from, say, Dawson Mercer in the New Jersey Devils, or if he were to become a Vancouver Canuck. Someone like, Nate Danielson, I know that Trev and I were talking about over the weekend. Trev believes that Marco Rossi, is the beneficiary of good deployment. I think it remains to be seen what kind of player Nate Danielson will be, but, I think he'll probably be a middle six type reliable two-way presence, which is a skill that Rossi doesn't have as much of. So, yeah, it's just an interesting player for Vancouver to pick up. But, in a league where you're really starved for a second-line center and most teams are looking for that kind of player, you could do a lot worse than Marco Rossi.
You could. I'm a little nervous about him just because we've seen him, get stretches with Kaprizov on that top line and not really be a major participant. Maybe if he is, this is a weird leap of logic maybe, but if he's playing with players who are less individually talented, then he may have more opportunities to participate in the play. He may be, have better chance of being considered someone who should get a puck on a particular play. But yeah, I'm pretty nervous about him. He's a guy that I have picked up numerous times while sort of waiting for the breakout to happen. And then last season we got a little bit of it. But yeah, asking him to kind of pick up where he left off this year seems to have been a bit of a miss. Let's talk about Liam Ohgren, and we also can talk a little bit about Spencer Stastney. I'm going to leave that mostly to you as someone with a little bit more of the prospect knowledge. Just take us through these last couple pieces here before we move on from some of these big trades.
Yep, spin me like a top and let me go, Lewis, because I love talking about these guys, as you know. Liam Ohgren, who scored his first goal tonight as a Canuck off a slick fake pass. Very nice move by him. He's a bigger part of this trade than people are giving him credit for. I saw a lot of people saying, he's just a fourth-line guy. I think that's slander on behalf of Liam Ohgren. I am absolutely certain that part of acquiring Ohgren in this deal for Vancouver is an attempt to see how much they can get out of their recent first-round pick, Jonathan Lekkerimäki, who was Ogren's line mate for much of his time with the Djurgårdens junior team in their draft year. They played together on the World Junior team for Sweden. A lot of people will remember a couple of great years from those two guys and some great production from Jonathan Lekkerimäki in that tournament. The season that they played together in their draft year on Djurgårdens junior team with Sabres prospect Noah Östlund, they were on fire with 58 points in 30 games for Ohgren, 35 points in 26 games for Lekkerimäki, who was the elite shooting threat on that line, also the offensive zone wizard, and Ohgren kept him safe with his two-way play and defensive acumen. Lekkerimäki has struggled to be as effective at the NHL level. Lewis, I think you'll remember last year when I was very high on him coming into the NHL. Didn't really pan out, but I do wonder if he can get his mojo back with his old buddy clearing pace for him and taking on some of that defensive load on maybe a sheltered scoring third line. Even if that doesn't end up working out, Ohgren can slot anywhere in the lineup, and at his absolute floor, he's a Pontus Holmberg type guy who definitely won't hurt you defensively and can only help, especially when you consider real hockey instead of fantasy hockey.
So would you want to maybe look out for Lekkerimaki then, down the line to maybe be a little bit more of a productive player if these two can refine their chemistry?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I definitely think that, if we can see even half of the chemistry that they had developed in their time together, I think you'll see a bit of a bump for Lekkerimaki here. There's something to be said about chemistry. We talk in numbers and abstracts a lot of the time, but these are two great friends, two players who have a lot of familiarity with each other, and I would not be surprised to see both of them lift each other up.
So that may be something to keep a look on, especially as we head closer to the end of the season, especially if the Canucks want to kind of turn the young guys loose and see what they've got. That could be an interesting option for us. And then we also wanted to spend at least a little bit of time mentioning Spencer Stastney.
Yeah, Spencer Stastney, not necessarily acquired as part of this Skinner and Jarry trade, but certainly as part of the fallout. He has a great story of overcoming adversity with his mental health at the beginning of last season and has made a triumphant return to the league this year as a full-time NHL player. He won't contribute much offensively, but he continues to improve in transition play, and his skating makes him a very valuable bottom-of-the-roster player. He's basically just a younger version of Brett Kulak, so I think sending him away in the Pittsburgh deal and getting his replacement in a subsequent deal, I think that's pretty smart work by the Edmonton Oilers management team. Stastny's strong gap control and defensive zone awareness will keep him in the lineup, and I think he could eventually be a top four defenseman in the mold of a Neil Pionk if he continues to develop near the top of his funnel. Obviously, this all depends on how Edmonton brings him along. He's a guy I've cheered for ever since I heard his story on the 32 Thoughts podcast, and I encourage everyone to go back into the archive and listen if they want a new favorite third pair defenseman.
Outstanding. Thank you for your insights there. Let's head on to probably the big story of Tuesday night, which is the clash of Skinner versus Jarry, the Oilers versus the Penguins, the goalie swap heard around the league. So a little bit of an interesting image. I know you mentioned that Jarry got a very nice reception in the building, so that's always nice to see. So things started a little funny. We saw Jarry give up the first goal of the game to Justin Brazeau, but Ben Kindel was offside, so Jarry's stat sheet remained clean. Then we had Skinner letting in his first goal as a Penguin defending an Oilers 5-on-3. No shame in that, but it did occur to be Draisaitl's 1,000th point, so that's very exciting. I imagine Skinner, at least for that one, would have preferred to celebrate with his former pals than against them. McDavid got another one-on-one, and Deke passed him. Again, I think we got to give him a pass on that. I think if you're getting scored on one-on-one versus McDavid, that seems fine. A couple weaker goals now from Skinner, and EK65 had a blast of a slap shot past Jarry, so maybe you got a little bit of knowing where to shoot on your former teammate. The score is 4-2 right now as they're headed towards the end of the game, but you all listening know how that ended up. One thing that I have sort of been saying ever since I heard about the deal, and maybe you feel some kind of way about it, I actually feel like Jarry is going to have, he can kind of capitalize, or Jarry managers can kind of capitalize on this hype of him moving to a better team. At least on paper, right? And I feel like they maybe should be reaching out and offering to trade him. I'm curious about your thoughts on this. My feeling is that his perceived value, especially after a couple wins, is going to be maybe higher than his value for the rest of the season. I've got some suggestions for who I might try to make that swap to, but first I'd like to know just, are you a hold, or do you have any interest in maybe looking to deal based on some inflated value for the moment?
I definitely see the reason why someone would do that for sure. I told you earlier today when we were talking about, setting up the show for tonight, that I kind of see Jarry as just as valuable as he was as part of the Pittsburgh Penguins. I am loving this kind of tear that the Edmonton Oilers are on right now. They've been a really hot team through the month of December. buoyed by, the resurgence of Megatron version of McDavid, as well as guys like Zach Hyman, who we'll talk about later in this episode on really good hot streaks. So I do like Edmonton for the rest of the season. And so I think, I don't think you're probably going to be able to get a guy like a Shesterkin or Soroka, these kind of name brand goaltenders. I could definitely see, moving him for, maybe a Yaro Askarov, who's getting a lot of volume right now and gets a considerable amount of wins for how good that team is. Maybe a Spencer Knight. I could definitely see those types of guys being good targets. But I think I might, if I were holding on to Jarry right now, I think I'd probably just keep him and just see how well he could do while the Edmonton Oilers are on this hot streak. Maybe his value could even go up, if Edmonton, turns it around and starts to look more like the team that went to the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. And certainly I'm not going to blame any manager who holds on to a player who has moved into a better situation. I guess my feeling is I felt like Jarry had a really high win ratio for playing in Pittsburgh. It's hard to see him, winning more than 2/3 of his games with the Oilers just because of variance and the way that, things go down each and every night. So to me, I feel like that idea that he's going to be winning more games may be a little bit overblown. You mentioned Knight. I like him as an option. He is playing really, really, really well. Jeremy Swayman is another guy that I like, both of them with some very nice goals saved above expected. So they are, both playing for teams that are giving up, maybe 55% of the shots, but they are playing so well that it is helping their team steal wins here and there. The Dobber site, Frozen Tools, when you look up goalies, they now have stolen games and then preventable losses, where essentially it's looking at is the goals saved above or below average greater than the difference in the game. Swayman has saved, I believe, 5 games for Boston while giving away 1 preventable loss. Not as exciting, I think, for Knight, but Knight has played quite well too. I believe he has 2 stolen victories and 1 preventable loss. So those are 2 players who are playing really, really well, but they're playing for teams that are perceived to be, weaker teams, although they've seen some success. I'm a little worried about Knight while, obviously, we have Bedard out for a little while. But I think targeting maybe Jeremy Swayman could be a nice option. I agree with you. You're not going to be able to get one of those higher name guys.
Yeah, I love that Jeremy Swayman target. And Boston has been certainly overperforming compared to where we expected them to be at this point in the season. I think largely off of the strong play of Jeremy Swayman and other players like Morgan Geekie and, of course, David Pasternak. So I like that idea of going for a Jeremy Swayman who, maybe some managers probably don't believe is as good as he is, especially after last season's train wreck of a performance from him. I want to check in with you, Lewis, on something we talked about a few weeks ago that is manifesting itself here in Colorado. It looks like this might be a season-long storyline. We do have a bit of jostling for position in the top 6 for Colorado. It actually looks a bit more like a top 9 now, which, of course, we don't love. That's anathema to fantasy hockey success. The guys talked about this on the Mega Show, but we have Gavin Brindley moving into line 1, power play 1 deployment, replacing Necas in all situations. Necas has been bumped down to the 3rd line with Victor Olofsson, and the 2nd line has been Landeskog, Colton, and Nichushkin. And so we're talking Nichushkin versus Brindley versus Necas. Of course, Nichushkin and Brindley have missed some time due to injury this year. The guys said that, they would prefer to take the guy playing with McKinnon, which would be, of course, Gavin Brindley right now. The McKinnon line was out-attempted 15-4 against Nashville in the game where Brindley moved up to that line. Maybe we'll see if that changes. The second line has been very productive, especially in their game against Florida. They were 11-5 in shot attempts. There's a lot going on here. I'm interested to know your feelings on this particular situation in Colorado and which one of those guys you think might end up on the top line going forward.
On the Mega Show, Elon described the Avalanche as kind of playing with their food and having the option and the opportunity to, try some things out and move things around. I think it's great that Gavin Brindley, good Michigan boy, up there on the first line playing with McKinnon. And I say, absolutely, jump on him if he fits into your roster. He's a great streamer to have. But for my money, I think that the players will, settle into roles that are more in line with their draft position. I would expect Necas to work his way back up. I think they're going to want to, if that's, I imagine how they want things to go during the playoffs. I don't think they're going to want to spend the whole season, not allowing those guys to play together. I think this is more of a temporary thing. Nichushkin, I think, is right where he, is more or less expected to be, an injury away maybe from a very exciting power play role. But, giving you some decent production with secondary deployment, about as good as you can expect from a line 2 power play 2 guy.
Yeah, I could definitely see that being the case. Necas at the end of the season being on that top line. I'm just so excited about Brindley. He's just such a great player. And as you mentioned, he reps Michigan Blue better than most at this point, especially at this point in the season. He's doing really well. I think the one thing I'll add here is that I could see Nichushkin being the guy to go down to the third line and Brindley sticking in the top 6. Jared Bednar has been very complimentary of Brindley's contribution to the team thus far this season, saying that despite his size, that he is a top 6 player and the way that he thinks the game fits with what they're trying to do in that top 6. And, it's been a couple of years of Valeri Nichushkin now not showing up when it matters for various off-ice reasons. I wouldn't be surprised if he has been deprioritized in the lineup here for Colorado going forward. And they did acquire Gavin Brindley on purpose. He wasn't just a throw-in in that deal. And so I'd be interested to see where he ends up at the end of the season. I think it might be in the top 6.
All right, Ryan. Well, I'm interested in your opinion there. I do think that you are a little bit prospect-brained here, but that's okay because we got to talk on behalf of the prospects too. And you just mentioned, being kind of stuck on the outside looking in because of some off-ice stuff. How about someone getting scratched from the Chicago power play for showing up late to the rink? Another classic, grouchy coach penalty. Take us over to Chicago. Tell us what's going on.
I mean, that definitely counts as an off-ice infraction because he wasn't on the ice when he was supposed to be. So there you go. Matt Grzelcyk moves into Artie Levshidov's spot on the power play. It is currently without Connor Bedard, so it's not as exciting as it could be. Burakovsky, Bertuzzi, Nazar, Grzelcyk, and Nick Lardis, who I wanted to shout out for making his NHL debut against Detroit over the weekend. 2 shots and 5 hits with 82% of the power play time. So Chicago definitely tried to take advantage of his offensive inclinations. Here's some of my scouting notes on him for the past few years, just for anyone who might be interested in the newest addition to the power play here in Chicago. Very offensively zone focused, strong positionally in the offensive zone, always knows where to go, volume shooter. Not much of a threat defensively, floats around the center line too often and tries to do too much in transition and under pressure. Small player who waits for others to set him up. Ceiling is a Jeff Skinner type as long as he can have average off-puck awareness. I think of him like a Victor Olofsson type, that he'll be great on the power play, and if he can be average defensively, he'll stay in the lineup. Seeing him throw those hits is very encouraging. He does seem to recognize that he needs to up his work rate to stay in the NHL, but kudos to Chicago for realizing they needed some more offensive pop while their best player is out, because I'm not sure where else they're going to get it from, Lewis.
All right, yeah, I agree with you. I'm a little worried. We did see a little bit of some offensive pop. They took a 2-0 lead against Toronto, but have since given it all the way back in the third period. They currently trail 3-2, so just keep an eye on that. I held Burakovsky through tonight. I have Norris on IR through Thursday, so I'm interested to see how it does, but I do share that concern on the Mega Show that Bedard is essential to both the scoring success and the scoring depth of Chicago. Despite, his pretty solid recent play, Burakovsky is the first guy I'm looking to drop unless the last few minutes of the game go in a drastically different direction. All right, we've covered a lot of stuff, Ryan. We got to take a quick pause here, but we will be back on the other side. You're listening to Short Shifts.
Every yard, every sack, every interception, and every touchdown. With Pick 6, DraftKings' newest game, every snap can turn into a big-time payout. This isn't just watching the game. This is playing to win. Here's how it works. Pick more or less on 2 or more player stats. The better your picks, the bigger your payout. It's that simple. And here's the kickoff bonus. New DraftKings customers get $50 in Pick 6 credits with just a $5 entry on your first pick set. You know the game. Now make it pay. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN. Play just $5 and get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Make the call. Ride the upside in partnership with DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos. Limited time offer. The holidays are here, and that means it's the most wonderful time of the year to save with Rakuten. Rakuten, use them to stack cash back at your favorite stores on top of holiday sales. That's saving on savings. With Rakuten, you can get cash back on gifts for everyone on your list. From toys for the kids to kitchen gear for the person who loves to cook to electronics for everyone. You can even save on something for yourself. Just shop the stores you love and cash back is automatically added to your account. And you can choose to get paid via Interac, e-transfer, PayPal, or check. Join for free today and get a new member bonus after minimum qualifying purchases. Just go to Rakuten.ca, download the app, or install the browser extension. That's Rakuten. Spells Rakuten. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, people, serious question time. Did you know that driving high is considered driving under the influence? That's right. Driving under the influence of marijuana is against the law in every state. That means even in states where marijuana is legal. That means driving high could get you a DUI. And if you think law enforcement officers can't tell when you're driving high, well, you're wrong. If you're high, they can tell. Your friends can tell. Your coworkers can tell. Even your parents can tell. Everyone can tell. So what makes you think that law enforcement officers don't know when you're driving high? You'd be wrong. They can tell too. Driving under the influence of marijuana can slow your response time and change how you perceive time and speed. So even if you think you're fine to drive when you're high, you're not. Because the bottom line is, if you feel different, you drive different, and driving high is driving under the influence. So remember, drive high, get a DUI. Paid for by NHTSA.
Marriott Bonvoy is the official hotel partner of US Soccer. Join Marriott Bonvoy today to get closer to the game with exclusive perks, unforgettable experiences, and benefits that go beyond the pitch. Spring Hill Suites, part of Marriott Bonvoy, offers complimentary hot breakfast and spacious all-suite accommodations, perfect for the whole team, with room for up to 6 guests. Make your next getaway a win. Learn more at springhillsuites.marriott.com.
Hey, this is Steve Gorman, radio host, sports commentator, former drummer for the Black Crowes. The winter holidays are here, a time for festive celebrations, family gatherings, and ringing in the new year. Whether it's a holiday party, a night out with friends, or just relaxing by the fire with a few drinks, it's a season full of good cheer. But here's something else to add to your holiday plans, a safe and sober ride home. Just like in sports and music, always have a game plan. And the most important part of any plan is sticking to it. If you plan to drink, take that plan a step further. Call a rideshare, a taxi, a sober friend, or have a designated driver lined up before the night begins. Drinking and driving is a decision that can change your life and the lives of others forever. A DUI, a crash, an injury. The consequences are real and lasting. So please, for your sake and for everyone else on the road, make the smart choice. Get a sober ride home. Drive sober or get pulled over. Paid for by NHTSA.
Welcome back to Short Shifts. All right, Ryan, before we jump into some hot streaks, I would like to give you the opportunity to talk about a couple young Russians. Let's start with Igor Chernyshov and then tell us a little bit about what's going on with Igor Chinakhov. So very similar gentlemen, but you're going to have to keep them separated.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a short shifts with me on it without a rookie debut. And we have Igor Chernyshov, the sunburned superstar, playing on the top line with Macklin Celebrity. Top 6 player to be certain, but he'll need to score to stay in the lineup when guys like Kurashev and Smith return. But man, can he score. 55 points in 23 games on Michael Misa's wing last season in Saginaw. 23 points in 25 games in the AHL this season as a 20-year-old. He definitely has the tools to expand at higher levels of hockey. Good physicality, plays a two-way style, top-notch puck handling, very smooth, and puts pucks into good spots. Has the potential definitely to stick in the lineup in a top 9 scenario, but he really should be deployed offensively. And then over in Columbus, Yegor Chinakhov is moving up the lineup tonight, has already paid off Dean Evason's hunch by giving him an assist. He's going to get some more power play time, and in Dean Evason's words, he says that his compete level has allowed him to start getting more scoring chances of late, which is why he is getting this opportunity. Columbus Blue Jackets fans will remember the trade request from his camp over the summer and his apparent disagreement with Evason on his deployment and usage. Hopefully, this is the beginning of a new chapter for Chinakhov and the Blue Jackets.
Yeah, it's always nice to see when you see a relationship get repaired a little bit instead of just getting worse and worse. So it gives you some hope. Hey, maybe a guy like Matvei Mishkov can find a coach that he can get along with in Philly, for instance. All right, let's jump into some hot streaks because we want to focus on the guys playing well. Zach Hyman, let's start there.
Yeah, we just have to say a big mazel tov to Zach Hyman. For him, Hanukkah came early. He's really been pouring it on in December. 7 goals and 1 assist in 8 games played in December. Starting to look like that guy you drafted in the 5th round, most likely. Playing on that top line with McDavid, who, as we mentioned, is suddenly beast mode again. Hyman is averaging nearly 3 shots on goal per game in that time, buoyed by a 7-shot game when he scored his hat trick against Detroit. Obviously, he's a roster lock for you, but this is a time when I think many of us were wondering if he still had it, and baby, he still got it.
That's right. We thought he maybe only had enough to score 1 point over those 8 games, but he managed 8 over that time. So good on you, Zach Hyman. All right, I want to take us over to another player, who is probably right now outperforming those expectations. Let's talk a little bit about Wennberg in San Jose. Alex Wennberg has been absolutely on fire. 2 goals, 6 assists for 8 points to go with 10 shots in the last 4 games. For a guy I have described, with apologies to Mallory Archer, as the most boringest player on this whole planet of Earth. Wennberg has had brief flashes of fantasy relevance over the years, but playing 20-plus minutes most nights with Toffoli and Graf at 5v5 and on power play 1 is a nice spot. He's obviously going to regress a bit with the scoring, but you should ride the hot streak. He's also shooting more, 10 shots in those last 4 games rather than a more typical 0-2, kind of what we've come to expect from Wennberg over the years. He's given you half a hit and a block and a half per game too. I think anyone getting top power play time in San Jose is interesting right now, so Toffoli is another interesting option. I was choosing between them for the week, and I went with Wennberg because of those extra minutes, like I said, as high as 22, 23 minutes recently. Obviously, some of that is shorthanded, but Cupful does count shorthanded points for extra, so some potential value there. And I was a little worried about Toffoli's dalliance on power play 2 for a while there. I imagine Wennberg will slow down, and that slowdown may be abrupt, but he's definitely an interesting stream for now if you have room for a pure center. Jumping down to another overachiever that we've talked about once or twice before on the show, Ben Kindel has once again become kind of an interesting piece. The only problem is it seems that you need to either choose between shot volume or scoring volume with him. He is not giving you both. His shots were super attractive over the last couple weeks. A couple 5-shot games, a 7-shot game in there. But he has seen the scoring boost recently. 1 goal and 3 assists in the last 2 games, but only 3 shots. A far cry from the 28 he put up in the 6 games previous. Kindel's deployment has suffered with the return of Rickard Rakell. And he is a line 2 power play 2 option, losing everything but scoring as he moves down the lineup. As the kids say, this is a very visual podcast. You see me pointing up. That's bait. I would stay away from Ben Kindel. I am not a believer in what he is doing right now with Rakell back.
Yeah, you had me so excited about him over the weekend, and those shots, I love the shots, and so I did add him, and I'm already starting to regret it. He'll probably be churned out sooner rather than later for me. But someone that I might be churning him for, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, but Robby Fabbri. He's hot, and hot for him basically means welcome back to the league, because he's recently actually signed kind of the equivalent of a tryout contract to come back here with St. Louis after just being ravaged with injuries throughout his career. A once great player for the Guelph Storm, a champion with that team, and also the Blues when they won the Stanley Cup. He's, as I mentioned, struggled with injuries, and a tryout that will likely expire once their litany of injured players return is what he is on right now. It's still nice to see him back. he still has the offensive chops with 2 assists in his 2 games played on the second line with Shen thus far. As of this morning, he is now on the wing of the top line with Robert Thomas and Buchnevich. So I'm interested to see how that continues. Dalibor Dvorsky also is getting some opportunity in the Blues top 6, centering Jake Neighbors and Otto Stenberg. 17 minutes against Nashville with just under 3 minutes of power play time marks an uptick from his average time on ice this season. His line saw the most even strength time all game, and his first goal was at even strength, which is kind of a surprise for him, as a lot of people would say he is a power play merchant. Of course, that second goal he scored was on the top power play, which is where he really shines. And why are Fabbri and Dvorsky getting such great opportunities? Well, as Kinger, a St. Louis fan, said in our Discord today, the St. Louis Blues are ready to hold open tryouts to people like you and me, even, Louis, because they are that banged up. Dylan Holloway is out for 6 weeks with a high ankle sprain. Jimmy Snuggerud, 4 more weeks after left wrist surgery. Jordan Kyrou is week to week with a lower body injury and hasn't started skating. So, hey, until these guys are close to returning, it looks like Fabbri and Dvorsky will feature prominently in the St. Louis offense throughout the holidays. They're so desperate for offense, they claimed Jonathan Berggren today from your Detroit Red Wings, Louis. So I wonder if he might jump into a bottom 6 role. We know him as a bit of a tweener type, but hey, St. Louis is taking the chances that they need to get through the holiday season, and you should too.
Yeah, just another Red Wings draft pick that didn't quite work out, unfortunately. I'm a little interested in Fabbri. He really had some exciting periods where he was finding a ton of fantasy success on Detroit last year. It didn't last, but it came in fits and spurts. So it might be worth taking a look at him now while he is on a little bit of a hot streak and getting this superior deployment. But definitely keep an eye on game day tweets, because as soon as he loses that favorable deployment, I am obviously much less interested in him. All right, Ryan, last thing to talk about here. We got to talk about the Rangers for the rest of the week here. Now, the Rangers obviously were a very exciting option for a lot of people. 5 games in the week. You don't see it all that often. But I know that you have some feels about the 5-game week and the potential trap that it presents. And I know you did some digging on here. So tell us a little bit about what you have seen from the Rangers and what you expect moving forward for the remainder of the week, and help people make their decisions moving forward.
Yeah, Louis, I'm going to give your poor, tired voice a break here and go on a bit of a rant here. It is my personal contention that these 5 games weeks, while they look good on paper, are rarely worth the hold for the entire week. And I did do a bit of digging with the help of John Bruno, who some of you may know as our steadfast Cupful Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League co-commissioner. John helped me pull some of this data. There were 3 such weeks in the past 3 seasons where teams played 5 games in 1 week. The Philadelphia Flyers in the week of January 16th, 2023, the Detroit Red Wings the week of February 27th, 2023, and the New York Rangers, who come up again here in the week of March 11, 2024. These were the last 5-game fantasy weeks from Monday to Sunday. And I want to start with the Flyers here. They had 3 games of those 5 with 2 or less goals scored. 1 game they were shut out entirely, and they had 1 3-goal game and 1 5-goal offensive explosion versus the hapless Ducks, buoyed by a Kevin Hayes hat trick, which I think you could agree with me, Louis, is about as random as you can get. If you take out that random hat trick versus a horrible team, you get a team that could only score 9 goals in 5 games. The Red Wings in their 5-game week also only scored 9 goals in a forgettable week for the Wings. They averaged only 23 shots a game, and only 4 players had more than 1 point that week: Larkin, Sherratt, Kubalik, and Kopp. Kopp had 3 points in 5 games, which is bottom of the roster no matter how you slice it. But otherwise, all those streamers that you got on Detroit would have whiffed in that week. The Rangers did happen to fare better in their 5-game week, going 4-1 with a 7-goal game and a 5-goal game. But again, they were carried by Artemi Panarin, who is a guy that would have been on people's rosters, with 10 points in 5 games. There was still at least 1 game in that stretch where they only scored 1 goal, and their other stars, Fox, Zibanejad, Kreider, and Trocheck, who would have been 100% owned, buoyed the scoring in those games as well. The only streamer tier player who was great was K-Andre Miller, who had 6 points. Otherwise, you're looking at 2 points from Will Cooley, 2 points from Johnny Brodzinski, 3 points from Jack Roslovic. So if you were streaming Rangers that week, you probably could have done better with other teams' streaming options. I guess my point is I wouldn't be married to streamer-level players after tonight at the expense of other options this week. I looked at the most added streamers in Cacupful since this weekend. Gavrikov, Schneider, Sherry, Laba, and Matthew Robertson. Are you really going to keep any of these guys? Lewis, if you had these guys, would you keep them for 3 more games this week?
So I actually like Schneider. He is a good bash option for you who's going to give you a decent floor, although a pretty low ceiling. He's going to get you peripherals. He has performed really nicely in that regard the last couple games, to my dismay, because my opponent picked him up. We've also seen some scoring upside from Gavrikov, so I could be convinced on the D. Now, that should come with a bit of an asterisk that I intentionally avoided defense both at the draft and have traded away my best defender. So I clearly don't think a ton of the defensive side of the game right now. But yeah, a guy who can reliably give you a really nice floor. A lot of teams love to have that, especially in a 5-game week. If you can count on 3 points a night from a defensive slot, which is, Schneider's giving you that and more, I think that could be a really nice option. So the defense, I think I would hold on to. Sherry, Laba, Robertson, these are cycle guys for me. If it looks like an opportunity for you to gain some games and maybe squeeze out a little extra, fine. It was another shutout tonight, unfortunately, for the Rangers. So, I've been of a mind more recently to sort of try to go for a bit more quality over quantity. Obviously having an extra 15 minutes out there on the ice could be the difference between some points and not. But for instance, this week when I could have grabbed a Sherry, I was more interested in grabbing a Wennberg because I think he does have more deployment, and that is a move that, maybe has some potential for a hold, beyond the 5-game week. Whereas, some of these guys with 3 games left might be replaceable. You might not even end up wanting to take the remaining games of the week.
Absolutely, Lewis. And there are 16 teams in the league that will play 3 games between now and next Monday. So if you're someone that's holding on to a Sherry or a Laba or a Robertson, you're saying, but it's a 5-game week. It's a 5-game week. That's over. And you didn't get any value from them tonight. So time to move on, I think. And just something to keep in mind for people who might be intrigued by these 5-game weeks coming up. Carolina has one in week 13. Edmonton has one in week 15. And LA has one in week 17. Pittsburgh has one in the Cupful Finals week. I would probably go for the Pittsburgh one just because, anything could happen in the finals. But don't put so much stock, in my opinion, in these 5-game weeks coming up, because you're going to end up with at least 1 or 2 shutouts or maybe even just low-scoring games, and it's just not going to be worth the spot. You can do better.
Yeah, I think this is really interesting advice. I'm glad you did the research on this. It's nice to give people, some data. The sample size is, relatively small, obviously, with just a few of these 5-game weeks. But yeah, I think, you want to be agile in your thinking. And, if a mindset of maximize my total number of games is not working for you, maybe fewer games with higher quality players to pick up might be a way that you want to go. Ryan, this has been a blast. There's been so much hockey going on while we've been talking. I'm really excited to see how things are turning out. But thank you so much for joining me here tonight. Thank you, everybody who joined us by downloading the show. If you enjoyed it, please consider joining the Keeping Karlsson Patreon group at keepingkarlsson.com/patron. Super supporters receive ad-free episodes, and you can interact with Brian, Elon, and the Short Shifts crew, and hundreds of other talented fantasy managers on our active Discord server. Check out GameDayTweets.com to get all the best information from X, including team by team and searchable posts by player name. Visit that site and the other great sites we use to research our episodes with at Yahoo, Frozen Tools, and Natural Stat Trick. Our intro and outro music was created by Pat Roach. And until we see you next time, play smart and keep your shifts short.
Marriott Bonvoy is the official hotel partner of US Soccer. Join Marriott Bonvoy today to get closer to the game with exclusive perks, unforgettable experiences, and benefits that go beyond the pitch. Spring Hill Suites, part of Marriott Bonvoy, offers complimentary hot breakfast and spacious all-suite accommodations, perfect for the whole team, with room for up to 6 guests. Make your next getaway a win. Learn more at springhillsuites.marriott.com.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening. Happy holidays! Want to give your host a gift? Consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show this holiday season. It really helps the show grow. From all of us at Believe, have a Merry Christmas, everyone, and a Happy Holiday.